Imagine trying to collect firewood or fetch water for your family, knowing a massive apex predator is actively hunting you in the brush. The geography of Kumaon and Garhwal amplified the danger. Deep ravines and steep slopes left these isolated villages nowhere to hide. The death toll climbed rapidly. A single tigress in Champawat killed 436 people over a span of several years. British infantry and wealthy sportsmen were summoned to stop the attacks, but they failed repeatedly. They lacked the ability to track silently or navigate the dense, vertical terrain. Normal tigers avoid humans and hunt at night. These specific man-eaters hunted by day, and they would travel up to 20 miles under the cover of darkness to strike entirely new villages. Entire communities stopped working. People refused to leave their huts. The colonial system's inability to stop the slaughter meant they needed a tracker with a completely different set of skills. That tracker was Jim Corbett. He was a modest railway clerk with a meager salary, not a wealthy aristocrat looking for a trophy. He grew up in the foothills of the Himalayas, running barefoot through the dense forests and learning to survive off the land. Because of his background, he held a deep connection with the local people. He understood their struggles and learned indigenous tracking methods directly from them. Corbett could identify animals by their tracks and move silently on foot for days. He could perfectly mimic bird calls to locate predators in the heavy brush. When he did track down a man-eater, he refused to claim the colonial reward money, and he never took the animal's skin as a prize. He tracked and killed more than a dozen of the most dangerous predators in India, yet harbored a profound reverence for the animals he hunted. Corbett tracked by treating the forest like a crime scene, reading snapped twigs and disturbed leaves to determine a tiger's exact size and speed. When he successfully killed a man-eater, he didn't simply walk away. He meticulously autopsied the remains to look for physical anomalies. This medical schematic highlights exactly what Corbett discovered during those autopsies. He consistently found shattered canine teeth and jagged bullet fragments embedded in bone from previously botched hunts. A tiger with a broken tooth or a festering gunshot wound loses the speed and agility required to take down natural prey, like deer. Desperate and starving, they turn to slower targets, human beings. These animals were not inherent monsters. They were tragic casualties of human interference, forced into unnatural behavior simply to survive. While the man-eaters caused localized panic, a much larger ecological disaster was unfolding across India. The colonial elite were clearing forests for tea plantations and shooting healthy tigers for sport. This line chart plots the tiger population in the United Provinces. Between 1875 and 1925, the number drops from 3,000 to just 500. As logging machinery and hunting parties expanded into the wilderness, the tiger's natural territory shrank, accelerating the population collapse. Seeing this destruction, Corbett made a permanent change in the 1920s. He stopped taking his hunting rifle on expeditions and began carrying a heavy camera to capture images instead. He realized the Indian wilderness was on the verge of disappearing. To protect the ecosystem, he needed to save the tigers from humanity, rather than humanity from the tigers. Using his status as a legendary tracker, Corbett lobbied British officials and viceroys to set aside legally protected wilderness habitats. His persistent advocacy worked. In 1936, the government established India's first national park in the Ram-Gundam River Valley. He also published best-selling adventure books. By framing his hunting stories around the plight of the predator, he educated a global audience about forest ecology. On the ground, he trained a new generation of forest guards, teaching them non-invasive tracking techniques and the importance of relying on indigenous knowledge. Corbett left India in 1947, but his published field notes and the foresters he trained preserved his practical methods. When the Indian government launched a massive tiger recovery effort in 1973, they used his concept of core sanctuary zones as the framework for Project Tiger. Because of that framework, India maintains over 70% of the world's wild tigers today. Corbett's life demonstrates that effective preservation requires deep empathy for the entire ecosystem. The man who was once the tiger's most lethal adversary ultimately became the architect of its survival.